What do you desire? What makes you itch? What sort of a situation would you like? Let's suppose, I do this often in vocational guidance of students. They come to me and say, well, we're getting out of college and we haven't the faintest idea what we want to do. So I always ask the question, what would you like to do if money were no object? How would you really enjoy spending your life? Well, it's so amazing. As a result of our kind of educational system, crowds of students say, well, we'd like to be painters, we'd like to be poets, we'd like to be writers, but as everybody knows, you can't earn any money that way. Or another person says, well, I'd like to live an out-of-doors life and ride horses. I say, do you want to teach in a riding school? Let's go through with it. What do you want to do? When we finally got down to something which the individual says he really wants to do, I will say to him, you do that. And forget the money. Because if you say that getting the money is the most important thing, you will spend your life completely wasting your time. You'll be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living, that is, to go on doing things you don't like doing, which is stupid. Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way. And after all, if you do really like what you're doing, it doesn't matter what it is, you can eventually you could eventually become a master of it. It's the only way to become a master of something, to be really with it. And then you'll be able to get a good fee for whatever it is. So don't worry too much. Somebody's interested in everything, and anything you can be interested in, you'll find others who are. But it's absolutely stupid to spend your time doing things you don't like, in order to go on spending things you don't like and doing things you don't like, and to teach your children to follow in the same track. See, what we're doing is we're bringing up children and educating them to live the same sort of lives we're living, in order that they may justify themselves and find satisfaction in life by bringing up their children, to bring up their children to do the same thing, so it's all wretch and no vomit. It never gets there. And so, therefore, it's so important to consider this question, what do I desire?
And welcome everybody to the Cosmic Sandbox with Matt, Geoff, and Jason. Man, I love that intro.
Me too. That's a good one.
I love that intro. I'm pumped now. I'm pumped. I feel like I can just run through a wall. I'm that excited.
Oh, Alan Watts. Yeah, that was a video called, I immediately forgot the title of it, but it's on YouTube, and it's Alan Watts speaking, and somebody put some cool visual images with some music on it.
Isn't the title just What If Money Didn't Matter?
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah. Fantastic little snippet, about 3 minutes of your day. If you got 3 minutes to kind of reflect and think about a couple of things, it's a great little vid. Check it out. YouTube it.
Yeah, so today we wanted to talk about an imaginary scenario. We're going to play around in the sandbox today, and what if money suddenly disappeared? What if it didn't matter, or any variation of that? And it was a more level playing field for everybody. How would that affect specific areas of our lives?
Mm-hmm. Like relationships, entertainment, sports, recreation.
Dating was an interesting one that I've been thinking about lately. How would all that stuff change if suddenly everyone was on a level playing field? Yeah.
Because let's think about it. We live in a very materialistic society in this part of the U.S. We live in Los Angeles, California, so a lot of people can be as deep as a puddle out here. But unfortunately, there's a lot of there's a lot of there's more to the relationship that starts to build aside from just the first few dates. But sometimes getting past those first few dates or getting to those moments can be a little difficult for people, whether they're in a financial crunch or a bind, or they feel that maybe they can't go to areas where they're going to have a good opportunity to meet, let's say, somebody that they would like to date. You know, maybe they're afraid to go to this area because they can't even afford a beer. Because I mean, everybody's looking for $12 beer night, you know. So as soon as you get the $12 beer night, you know, you're excited, you're pumped. But yeah, it would definitely change the landscape if there was no longer money that was essentially dictating this kind of, we'll call it peacocking. You know, this peacocking type of.
That's where I'm interested in exploring first, is like attraction, because there's so much of attraction, at least for women, a lot of times is based off of your ability to provide. You know,
the security.
The security, the monetary security that you get of being able to secure food and resources. You know, the car that you drive, how that makes you look to a girl, like things like that. You know, what your house is, how you dress, you know, if everybody could suddenly have all of those things, whatever they wanted, if everybody could suddenly drive an Audi and a BMW and a Mustang, what would differentiate anybody from anybody else then, if suddenly everybody could be the same?
And the internal would change as well. Like the external things, like when you talk about like a car, like the things that attract, let's say a female, male, whatever, to somebody, the internal values system of themselves, like in a sense of their confidence and their ego, those things are altered by their access to money, resources. So that also, though, internally that is reflected outward. So that's seen in like, oh, this person has a lot of confidence, or that attraction then is magnified by those internal things as well as the external thing of having like a nice condo or a nice car or something like that.
Just thinking about that, you know, when you're dressed real nice and you go out and you know you have like a really nice clean car and you go out and then you have that extra little bit of confidence because you look good, you feel good, you feel whatever. You know, again, if suddenly that everybody had that. They could pick whatever material thing they wanted. How would that, you know, what would people go off of at that, or at least girls? What would they go off of at that point?
Right. I mean, it's such an interesting topic to discuss, because again, we're all guys here, so obviously when we're looking at it, we're looking at it from our point of view of how do we attract a female, or how does a female's attraction or her perception of what attraction is, how do we appeal to that, you know what I mean? But it would essentially, like what Geoff had mentioned, when the external has kind of been neutralized, now it's pretty much if everybody is this or that. Well, think about this. I bet because human beings are very tribal in nature, and I think that's something that will stay consistent throughout. I don't think that will change. I think that what would start to happen is you would essentially go to places where people would still have very similar types of social meetings and greetings and gatherings and get-togethers. So you might go to a bar where everybody dresses like a hipster. You might go to a bar where everybody dresses very upscale in tuxedo. You might go to a place where everybody dresses like the 1950s greasers, and, you know, they have like the cool rockabilly look. So I think people, if access to all those resources and access to those looks, we'll call them, were available, I think you'd have like these little genre places popping up of, well, I fit into this subculture, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to hang out there. So again, people would still look for the visual side of things. But
I think people would find different ways of peacocking. They would still find their way of being really unique visually. Yeah,
but one thing I think that would change is we would have the perception of the security that is no longer there with the amount of, let's say, finances at this person's available, you know, fingertips. That would no longer even be an issue. It wouldn't be, oh, you know, this so-and-so looks really nice. I bet you they're a baller. Or so-and-so looks really nice. I bet you they have a really good job. It might change to a point of, hey, you know what? So-and-so is at the same place I'm at. I'd like to talk to them. That's where it would change a lot. A lot of that would change from the perception of what can they offer me or what can they give me to, I would just like to meet this person. You know, that would change a lot. At least I think it would. I think that would kind of change.
Yeah, I think you would look for more so with people you mesh with, like your idea of like just finding like subcultures or things that like reflect who you are.
Yeah.
There's this one book I read where it had a society similar to that, where it was like a lot of very, very advanced technology, and people had the potential to just really create whatever reality they wanted to manifest, right? And there was a skyscraper in this story where on different floors were different worlds, in a sense of, like, if you lived on the 17th floor, that was the equivalent of, oh, you lived on, everybody there dressed, acted, and like as if they were in the 17th century, and like they had these fixations with these.
Yeah,
things.
totally.
But it was then, it wasn't so much, even like when you talk about like peacocking, it's not so much that, like, now you might be doing it, and it's more of like to, gratify the ego, or some of these other things that are going on. Now you're just trying to find people who are like you.
Yeah, like-minded.
Who are similar to you. So if you were to go to a hipster place, that's what you're comfortable with. Like, you don't need, you're not seeking any other kind of validation. You're not trying to change other people to be like you, or to use you as some kind of status symbol. You just simply want to be in the presence of other people who resonate with you.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I think it goes back to human beings being very, very tribal, as a primitive kind of mammalian DNA level of just wanting to be in these collective groups. And then you'll have your folks that will kind of bounce around and be more wanderers or nomads and whatnot. But I think people, for the most part, typically tend to kind of stick to their circles, their general circles of things. So if money wasn't an option, I really do think it would change a lot of the internal mechanism of finding somebody or someone to spend time with, because
it'd be a lot more based on personality and someone's energy and everything like that.
You know what though? Okay, that's a good point. Would it just be on personality and energy? Because again, we are typically still a very visual species too. We would look at, are they attractive? Are they good looking? Are they built? Are they in shape? Do they look healthy? Because I remember reading an article once that, and again, every article you read has some census or research from this part of the U.S. or this place or Canada or somewhere that says, 1,500 applicants were cross-referenced and cross-screened and cross-examined. But it talked about the strange attraction that these women that were in these test groups had towards men. And one of the underlying factors was healthy, which I thought was strange. But maybe, again, that goes down to a very primitive mammalian level of, if they are thinking of reproducing with somebody, are they healthy? Are they somebody that is going to produce healthy offspring? So again, I know that's going a little deeper than what we wanted to.
There's a lot of like visual things you'd have to, girls would go off of when looking at somebody or being around them to determine whether or not they're considered healthy too.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that could be anything from, hell, if somebody says, oh, well, he's really skinny, so he must not be healthy. Well, no, maybe he just doesn't. Maybe he has a fast metabolism. Yeah. Maybe his genes are set up so that he doesn't gain weight like most other guys do, or whatever the hell it is. But I think you brought up a good point there, Matt, with, would it just be about the personality? Would it just be about the energy? I mean, would we still have to take looks into consideration? Because again, we are just very visual. We're very visual.
Yeah, I think it would, in a way, it would become even worse for guys, because we are already discriminated against. I'm trying to think of what I was about to say here. Less attractive guys get an upper hand because they maybe make more money, and thus they're able to provide more, and thus they're able to attract girls they wouldn't normally be able to get because of money. If that went away, girls might be more likely to just go straight after the guys that are really attractive.
Yeah, it's possible.
Well, I think a lot of things would change. Like, it's the one thing to keep in perspective is the fact that if you're talking about a world where money doesn't exist, a lot of other things aren't going to exist. So even relationships.
Good point. Yeah.
I'm just like relationships in a sense of how we see them today would not be the same. Like, it might take 6 months, it might take 3 generations, but they would have a massive change in just why we even have relationships, why they function. Because a lot of the reasons we have
that's very
marriages,
true.
like
that's
marriages are
monetary related.
Well, they're monetary, but they're also property related. Like a big thing. If you go back all the way to like the more of like tribal, or even like like Roman times, any of these times when you even had like some of these other prior civilizations, you always had a lot of fighting, you had a lot of war. So for a man who was leaving to go to war, if you married a woman, you were saying, this is mine. You had a big wedding. This is my property. This woman is mine. And then you had a much greater chance of knowing that if she had a child, that it was your child. And so even if you went away to war and you never even saw that child grow up, you would just have a little more confidence that this was your child and he's going to inherit your property, your estate, your land, and your all of the stuff you've accrued over your lifetime. So if you don't have money and you don't, in a society that not like we're talking like, and I'm always going to see this as the Star Trek world. Whenever people talk about a world without money, to me, it's just that's the Star Trek universe.
I see it as this weird in between world where everything still looks the same outside, but that money is not there. That's kind of the scenario that interests me the more right now is the more relatable one of if you woke up tomorrow and suddenly no one had any money or everybody had the same amount of money or there was just a level playing field in general.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying there. But I do think like relationships at large, like marriages even today are still, and I don't want to say they're all monetarily related, but a lot of things in a sense of that security, whether you want to consciously recognize it or if it just you may be even just aware of it being a subconscious thing that's affecting women in large or just relationships at large in terms of pushing you to that point. But if you don't have those pressures, if you don't have most, like you think about like when they talk about even why most people get divorced, like whatever the statistics are, a lot of times it boils down to it was money. We got divorced because of pressures, and if you boil it down
pressures with what exactly?
Like just pressures from money. The fact that like a lack of.
Do you guys know what the 3 largest disputes are in marriages? They're the 3 most common: sex, money, kids. Those are the 3 most common disputes in marriages that eventually end up either rifting people or sending them into like this chasm mode of like, look, we're never going to be able to cross this. Go ahead, Geoff. I didn't mean to break you off there.
But no, I mean, if you think a lot of these things in relationship manifest out of stress and anxiety from you working shitty jobs that you don't like and to make money because you need that, and then you're concerned about paying bills or doing this, or you want to go on more vacations, or you want to be able to do all these things. Oh, we can't do that. We can't afford that. So all these things, so many things boil down to money. Like with kids, it's difficult. You're not spending a lot of time with them. They're having problems. Well, why are you not spending time with them? Oh, because we're working shitty jobs we don't like.
Make a living, yeah.
and we got to pay all this money, and they need this for this, and so just so many things boil down to money and energy, resources, whatever, however you want to. Whatever label you want to, I like to use energy, but so if you change these things, like you no longer have to do that. It dramatically changes relationships, and I could see that for the most part. I could imagine, I could see that people wouldn't get married that much. Like you wouldn't.
I still think people would get married. Just because of what it symbolizes and things like that.
You'd probably have traditionalists, people who looked in the past and said, oh, back when we had this crazy thing called money for favors or money or some type of monetary denomination for I did this and I got this. Well, they also had this weird thing called this ritualistic thing called marriage that they did. So you look at people that will follow those rituals. But I think what Geoff's saying is very true. Maybe people would just be companions. People would stay with each other for a while, maybe 10, 15 years. And then they're like, oh, you know what? This was fun. And now I'm going to go either do my own thing or do this or do that because now, dude, I heard from a few people, and I'm not the foremost, the best person on relationships and or marriage or whatnot, because I've never been married, but I mean, I've had a lot of friends who have been and have had successful and unsuccessful marriages. And a majority of them always say that the 3 major aspects that they have problems with are sex, money, and kids. And eventually, the most successful marriages that I've ever heard of from people are folks that have said, if you run marriage like you run a business, you will be, for the most part, okay. You'll be all right. You have to marry a business partner, somebody who's good with you in business. And I thought to myself, well, that's not very romantic. I thought you're supposed to marry the love of your life, and you're supposed to, marry this person that you have all these deep emotional connections to and these intimate feelings and et cetera, and blah, blah, blah. And the common thread through all of that is people change. People change. You're not always going to feel the same way. Things are not always going to be, the physical is not always going to be there. The mental is not always going to be there. So being able to work with somebody in like a team scenario, knowing that let's say you get sick and your wife has to work and she has to take over. Can that happen? Can she do that? Can you do that if your wife gets sick and you need to take over? You know, it's being able to kind of watch each other's back in a way and being able to take care of things in the current system we have set up with marriage. Yeah. And I mean, it's just, it's you know, if money wasn't an option, then yeah, maybe all of those would just go right out the window. Maybe, because would you argue about money in the top 3? Well, the sex thing I think would always be there because that's just going to be something that human beings will just hold on to as far as a physical and intimate relationship with another, you know, entity, person. I'm not going to say entity, another person. You know, kids, that thing.
I'm married to this ghost.
Yeah.
This entity.
Boy, this ghost is doing me dirty. Kids, that thing, I mean, you know, of course, yeah, it's tough when, I mean, I'm assuming children probably give their parents shit about, oh, I don't have the newest Jordans, and oh, I don't have the nicest stuff at school. Well, you know what, now that's out the window. Now every kid is doing okay, but I'm sure if there are any type of health issues with a child or anything like that, whether they're mental stability, physical, physiological, things like that, you're going to have issues that you're going to have to deal with your partner on that. And, you know, the money thing, if we take that out of the big 3, now you just have what? Sex and kids. I mean, now we're just down to sex and kids, you know, so who knows?
Those are very intrapersonal things too. Very much just between you and that person. Yeah. And how you agree on philosophies, for example, or ways of upbringing and things like that. Whereas I feel like money is this external thing.
It is. Money is an influencing factor.
It's an influencing factor.
You know, I like to create contrast by going to extremes. So if you think of
Geoff, tangent, bring it.
Yeah, but if you think of, okay, let's go, you know, 2,000-3,000 years back, and you've got this situation where barbarians have destroyed an entire village and taken women captive and stuff. It's like it becomes this sense of necessity. Like maybe a woman marrying a man to stay protected, and so she's not, you know, raped and killed by other men or something. So there's these, it's like almost driven out of necessity, and that is still to a degree true today. That because of money and because of other like factors that are externally influencing us, that you see both women and men in relationships. Getting just in a sense of pursuing other people for the sake of necessity, like to obtain resources or to obtain some position of status or power or capability where they want to be, right?
Yeah, status. I think that's one thing that'll still always exist because you're talking about tribal hierarchies. You know, again, if money went away and everybody was on a more level playing field, people would still base things off of status. You know, if everybody at a company was making the same and it was just, you're just really left with status. What do you do? You know, oh, you're the president. Oh, you're the president's son. Oh, you're this, or you're just a lowly worker. It doesn't matter what they're making, but it's still the status thing. I'm like, oh, you work for this powerful person, or you are this powerful person. Yeah.
You know what would be interesting about that is, like, you know, you typically, whenever you throw that type of, I don't know, title, you know, we'll say, you know, you're the big dog. The dude's at a fucking VIP table and he's got champagne bottles and sprinklers and sparklers coming out every time he orders one. Well, if everybody can do that now, who gets that front table? How does that work? Is it a friend of a friend of a friend? Is it a buddy of a buddy of a buddy? Is it, you know, knowing the right people? So again, are we still keeping statuses even in a society that doesn't have money? You know, like, who gets that front table? Well, okay, you can have it on Tuesday, Matt. Well, why would I want to have it on Tuesday? All the hot chicks are on Friday.
But why are they? But we're still thinking that all of that would still be the same, because these things would dramatically change. Because even now, if you think of a nightclub, like a nightclub, in that table you're talking about is a external representation of my ego, of my wealth, of my status. But if everyone, if money doesn't exist, then dude, screw your money. Like, you can't claim that anymore. You can't say, well, look what I've got and you don't have.
We're just talking about the atmosphere, though. Remember what we were talking about the subculture stuff? Like, people would go to the hipster bar. People would go to the baller bar. This would be like the baller bar. They would go there to hang out, and they would, because they want to be around that, like, very flashy, very over-the-top, extravagant lifestyle. So in going to that, they know that they can have just as much as the next person. Would they still want to go there? Would they still want to enjoy all the excess that is going on? I mean, that's a good question. You know, who knows? You know, would you still want to bombard yourself with, oh, dude, I got to wait in line to get in the club?
Well, here's another thing.
Man.
This is
something for you really quick. This is something for you really quick, Geoff. I'm more talking about this weird transition period. That's kind of where this fantasy is lying. Not after we figured that stuff out. It's that first time that everybody's like walking in the club and going, "Oh my God, wait, everybody has the same thing." So there's nothing to differentiate. I'm talking about that first time people have to realize that money thing is gone.
Yeah, because
that's the interesting part for me.
That's a good clarification, because so many, like, my mind immediately goes to kind of building out the peripheral of, well, how could a society like this even exist? And I have, some really good personal thoughts on how that all functions. So it's even thinking, like, it's not even just that you have no money, because it's when you get to a technological capability where money ceases to exist. And so I'm encompassing that certain technologies exist in this world that we're talking about. But if you're saying more of the equivalent of it's just everyone's like loaded with cash, well, now it becomes the sense of either money's not important. I'd rather almost approach it like that, where everybody's rich in a society where everyone is rich. Then it's more appropriate, I think, for me, because otherwise, like, if you're talking about a place where money doesn't exist, it also means that many other things
I see what you're
are
saying.
in play that allow that society, because it's resources. If what you're talking about at the table is scarcity. Now we're talking about abundance versus scarcity. So money right now is used as it's an artificially created resource that is controlled and regulated, and it's scarce for, like, you got to go get more of it and accrue as much as you can. But now when you talk about a table, like a VIP position at a table or something like that at the nightclub, you're creating this supply demand scenario of, well, there's only one of these tables, and so now what is traded? What is negotiated for the table?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
so
money comes into play
there.
So money still. It's almost like, whether, even though you're not talking about money, you're talking about energy. You're talking about something being exchanged.
Yeah.
So that you get the table on Tuesday and you have the status. And what did you do to get that status? Like, now, so that's where I just got a little, like, my brain just like was kind of going sidetracked.
I guess the fantasy in my head is kind of figured out, but it really is that weird spot between the end of this generation and the beginning of the first generation of people who are born into a world where money is, or it's a level playing field in terms of money or scarcity.
It'll take a few generations for it to kick in. I think what would eventually end up happening is this generation now would go apeshit.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in. How would people have to suddenly deal with this different world? That's what's interesting.
I feel this generation now would go apeshit. Everybody would have a Lamborghini. Everybody would have a 16-bedroom house. Not everybody. Geoff would not. But I'm just saying, everybody, the amount of excess would be at an all-time high. But that generation would essentially phase out, because the next generation would go, well, we don't really need all that, do we? And then the next generation will slowly phase that out. And then you would, I think, work more towards what you talk about, Geoff, as a utopian type of Star Trek society, where after a while they would understand, well, we don't really need this. If we really, really need it, we can get it. But right now, we just don't really need it, because unfortunately we have been conditioned for so long of not having these things, of not having, it's like, how much can I amass? How much can I pull over here? How much can I hoard over here and have and have and have? Whereas if you're born into just never wanting and you're always on the end of receiving, then you're like, well, I don't need to have. I've always had it. So I think it would take maybe 2, 3, 4 generations for it to really kind of kick in, for everybody to understand it. But I want to take a step back to where we were initially started with this, with, just the dating scenario and the dating scene and whatnot. Because it would be. I mean, if you think about just even the early parts of the conversation of just breaking the ice per se, it wouldn't be an issue of what do you do anymore. I mean, in a society with no money, do you still have jobs? No, you probably have an occupation. You probably do multiple things. You probably just say, hey, these are my, like a breakdown of your interests, hey, I like to paint, and I like to, sculpt, and I like to, I like to work out, and I sometimes I do this. And yeah, exactly. Like, you would just tell all of these things. It wouldn't be, oh yeah, I'm a day trader. Oh yeah. I'm a CPA. Oh yeah, I do financial analytics for this Fortune 500 company. What's up?
Still come down to, I would think, for girls. I wish we had one here to get some female perspective.
Yeah, but, we don't know any chicks.
So sad. what I still think that they would be find us particularly interesting by their occupation alone, just like we would them. You know what I mean? If you found a girl who was into something really fascinating, really interesting, you know, her entire job was supervising, you know, Yosemite National Park and just making sure all the animals in the park were kept healthy. That, I mean, that for some guy that might be awesome. Like, that sounds like a really cool job. I really respect you for doing that. You sound like a really interesting person.
I think it would be more genuine in that
more
sense.
Genuine, yeah.
You would right now it's this sense of like if you meet somebody who and
if she met somebody who was an artist and who didn't make a lot of money, but he was an artist.
Yeah,
that would be looked down upon now because he doesn't make a lot and he's just kind of scraping by. But he's cool because he's an artist. I love his art, but I can't really get into a relationship because he doesn't really make a lot and he can't provide.
Well,
that would be a limiting factor that would go away.
And that plays into the competition factor of, in just we're because of media and the current reality framework of how the system works. It is that sense I feel that we're designed to compete with one another. You watch a show like Cribs or any and it's just a sense of this want, like you need to be like this, like, oh, look up to celebrities, look up to these people. And I mean, it's just disgusting in my opinion how much focus is placed on celebrities and other people's lives. Like, that's why I have a big problem with reality television. It's sense of competing and whatever you think you've got, that's not good enough because
there's always a bigger fish.
Yeah. But and it's still, and it's heavily skewed anyway. It's just like these reality shows, like, one, they're fake. They're all fake, but in the sense of they're showing you, it's like scripted, a sense of reality that isn't true. So these people have problems that are equally like similar to your own in a sense of what they're dealing with internally. It's just you're seeing their external environment of, oh, they've got this car and these nice things and their lives look busy and entertaining and all of these things. So you're left in this mode of competition, and then it's also in your own environment. If you have friends, like if you have 10 friends and they're all doing these things and they have these things, you want those things. You want to be a part of the clan, of the group. You want to fit in with them. You want that kind of car and you want that kind of job. You want to be able to drop money like they do at a club or something like that. So there's all of these factors that externally influence you. And if you don't know what you want internally, that's a big part of money. It's something I'm working on, but it's one of those things where I don't really care about money. But you have to, I feel, work with it internally first, and then you can deal with it externally.
I just want to go off what you said right there, Geoff. That is a very, 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 very good thing you said. With money, sometimes, unfortunately, what happens is people start to stop forgetting what works for them internally, because access to everything is now no longer a problem. So when you have access to everything, it's no longer an issue of, well, I wonder if I kind of sort of like this, because now you're just trying everything. Imagine going to a buffet 7 nights a week and you always have access to everything, but you really don't know what you really like. And sure, you're going to find your favorites. You're going to find the things that you go to. And that's not to say somebody who has to scrape and get by and make it with mac and cheese and one chicken breast is more, let's say, rich. And I'm using the term loosely, rich, because they know exactly what they can eat or what they can't afford. But I've seen people, and I've seen these individuals who have so much money, just ridiculous money, that they don't know what makes them happy. They don't have any type of internal happiness that they can project outward and say, you know what? I have all of this, but yet this really makes me happy. This is because, and I'm going to use a goofy quote from Fight Club, the one scene where Brad Pitt tells Ed Norton, he says, eventually all the things you own end up owning you. Because a lot of their happiness resides in this amassing of these things, and amassing because they look at it as a type of security. And in our current system, it is a type of security because it's assets. If they ever go bankrupt, they can sell all their shit and they'll have money again. If they ever need to find partners, they can show their shit off and they'll have a partner. They can invite people over and brag about what they have. They can continue on perpetuating this lifestyle. So when you are truly happy inside, I think that's something that would change too. Maybe people would even reflect on things differently in a society without money, maybe the happiness factor would eventually increase for individuals, and people would focus more on.
It would just open more doors in general to try things.
Yeah, do this. Well, you know, I can't tell you how many times. I can't tell you how many times. You know, you've talked to people when you've grown up. I've had these personal experiences myself, where I've told people what I wanted to do, and they just kind of scoff and laugh and go, well, wouldn't you rather be like an air traffic controller? Why? Because they make money. Yep. You know, so they don't even hear what you said. What you said, it doesn't matter. You know, just do that as a hobby, you know, out in the shed or in your den in your house.
It's like being an artist, being a painter. For
exactly. You know, there's no money in it. So why would you do it? So I think that would even change the psychological input and the impulses of responses to people when they would say things. If somebody came up to me and said, "Yeah, man, I've always loved donuts. I want to open my own donut shop." Awesome, dude. Make the best donuts you can. Yeah. You know, if you make some crazy donuts, I don't know. Have you ever had a maple bacon donut? It's pretty awesome. Yeah, somebody made that thing, right? Somebody took a chance and made it. So I'm just saying, I mean,
imagine the possibilities.
Somebody didn't stifle that dream, you know, but again, that just takes courage to do that. And I think that's one thing that would change immensely is people would have the courage to say what they want, and then there wouldn't be as much ridicule and there wouldn't be as much scrutinizing people for, oh, really? You want to design couches your whole life? Well, there's money in architectural firms and blah, blah, blah.
Did you see that couch on Reddit?
The couch?
There's this awesome couch.
Yes. Oh my God. I saw that one.
Brilliant. It has like the 3 seats, but then it has like a wooden, I don't know if you saw it, Jason, but it's like the middle seat has a wooden, like where you'd put, you know, like you could put a cup or whatever. It's almost like the middle seat becomes like it has a top to it, but you slide that out and then it's like built into the couch and the lower part, and then you pull the other cushions out and you put your feet up then, and then so it can go from a 3-person couch to have room for your feet. And I don't know. Like,
it's like a
so cool.
A 2-person couch with a little
is it like this here?
Hard spot in the middle to put your drinks and your food, but then you can slide that part out in front of you and turn it into basically like a coffee table footrest.
Yeah.
And then have a third person be able to sit in the middle.
That's better description.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. But no, it's one of those things, and that's why I like how you opened it with the Alan Watts intro, because what he's saying is what he proposes there, and when the question he's asking is a question that a lot of people, I feel, do not reach. They don't get to the point. Like, if you think of...
Dude, they ask it, Geoff, but the problem is people stifle them around them. People do all the time. You can ask any person. You can walk up and down the street. You can go to the 3rd Street Promenade. And you can ask every single person, hey, man, what did you want to do when you were like 8? And of course, you know, you're probably going to get some wackos that say, I wanted to be Superman. Okay, man, I get it. Well, hey, you know, did you want
to be Superman?
Me, I want to be Batman. I know. So, but I'm just saying, you can ask everybody, and everybody had a dream at one point of what they wanted to be. And of course, that might have changed over time, but people have been stifled for years. They've been, I mean, when you were 16, if you still wanted to be Superman, you were either, you know, sent to a place where people weren't talking to you too straight, or they were like, stop it. You need to get serious about this now. Let's see what makes money. Okay, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a financial person. So I think everybody has that, but they don't listen to themselves. There's a voice that's sometimes speaking to them, but they cram it down. They shove it down their throat with what everybody else has told them of, oh, you need to do this because there's job security.
Yeah.
You know, you need to be a nurse because guess what? People are always going to get sick and they need people to take care of them, so you need to be a nurse. You need to be a lawyer because people are never going to get along, so people are always going to argue, so go be a lawyer. I've had both of those things thrown at me when I was in high school.
Geez.
They said, if you really want a good job, be either a nurse or a lawyer. You know why? Job security. People are never going to get along and people are always going to get sick. So do that. And I thought, fuck that. I'm not cleaning up piss pans. I don't want to do that. Fuck that. I don't want to listen to people bitch about all the shit they have.
Mm-hmm. There's a perfect example too. Speaking of piss and shit. If everybody doesn't have to, you know, make a living, or the money thing isn't a factor in choosing a job, who's going to be a janitor anymore?
Good point, dude. Yeah,
who's going to be a garbage man anymore?
Well, this is
drive a garbage truck, but. Where does that go?
Yeah, the infrastructure. What happens to the infrastructure of our whole society? Are there janitors? Are there people that take care of the sick and the elderly? I would think the sick and the elderly, yes, you'd have philanthropists and people that already do that now. But yeah, dude, who wants to go clean the porta potties at a Led Zeppelin tribute concert? You know what, Geoff? Are you going to volunteer to do that?
Here's what I would do.
Yeah, that's a no.
Okay, and this is where you start to get into it's almost hard. It's really hard to talk about this without talking about other things. But certain technologies would exist that would not like you almost can't have this type of society without certain technologies. So a lot of the menial
and maybe
labor,
that would be more likely to come about because people have more time to devote to what they really want to do.
That's a good idea.
And a lot more innovation
happens.
Let's
pretend it just happens tomorrow.
Yeah.
And everyone has all this money. So now what we do, if you're saying it's a society where money doesn't exist, or is it one where everybody's rich?
Yeah, they are different.
I'm just
trying to imagine more of a level playing field, personally.
Okay. So let's just say everybody's rich. Everybody's got, pick a random number, that's all right, but $5 billion sitting in a bank, right?
Or there's an infinity in their bank account.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of money. So you can still use this as a sense of if you wanted to, if you were still in the mental mode of accruing wealth, you could get paid a shitload of money to do maintenance. But also, what this would free you to do is rather than you have all this creative energy. To me, let's just entertain it as energy. You have every day at any given moment of the now, you have X amount of energy you can throw out at a problem. And so right now we're having this conversation, but you could be working on something. I could be up in my office working on something. Or we could all be doing other things,
working
right?
a 14-hour shift at a job somewhere.
So you have all this energy. Well, if the majority of the human race is not focusing their energy on working as CPAs and doing all these other things.
Stupid crap that I don't want to do.
Suddenly you can get a lot of people together and start going, well, how can we build infrastructure that is sustainable? Like, how do we develop technology? So you start throwing all of this collective energy. So now, would I go be a janitor at a high school? And then if you had the right society where it was people coming together and deciding we're going to build the infrastructure to create a better, more lasting, and start developing all these. I would do anything. I would work 12-hour shifts as a janitor or cleaning up roadways, and then go work 6-7 hour shifts in groups and brainstorming sessions, like developing and working with engineers and trying to come up with ideas to build better infrastructure. I would totally do that. And if you said, well, it's going to take us 10 years to do this, fine. I'll throw my energy and work towards that. And I think tons of other people would do that. So it would be a sense of coming together and trying to build a better society.
Yeah. In that case, what about some kind of a, I don't want to say mandatory, but a volunteer system, a rotation, if you will. If, like you're saying at the high school, every teacher for 1 week out of the year has to be a janitor. They have to do this, and they put on the gloves, and they go and they do the job. Mm-hmm. And it's just a constant rotation, just like community service, if you will. It's just part of the deal. Living here is you have to spend 1 week out of the year doing this job.
Yeah.
Could we do something like that? You know, I wonder if
could. I think you would get people to do it. I think you would get a lot, but it would be more of people coming together, because right now there's a lot of things that we do just because that's the way it's done. Oh, this is just what we do, and you don't have the time. If I were to sit here and go, well, let's come up with a more efficient way of doing something, a lot of people don't have the time, which is energy, to do it because they're bogged down with what they're doing. But if you suddenly have access to money, resources, now you go, how can we build a better system? So we don't like doing this. We're tired of driving in the snow on these freeways. Let's figure that out. We've got money and resources. Let's develop technology to take care of it.
Another example about infrastructure, the reason why a lot of times more, I'm trying to think of the word, more robust resources or infrastructure isn't put together is because it's more expensive. Oh, we won't use that kind of electrical switch over the one that'll last longer because it's more expensive. Now, if money is not an object for whatever reason, now you can use better engineered materials. You know what I mean? In what you're doing, you'll buy a car tire that will last a way longer, but the only reason it was never popular before is because it was too expensive.
It was money. Like if you think of right now, and this applies to every single commercial product anybody purchases, they're designed to break and fail so that you eventually have to buy a new one. But if you don't have that, if that is no longer if you're not trying to just hoard profit into a secret bank account outside of the United States of America, it changes the corporate structure, and that is reflected into all the employees and the people working there, where they're like, listen, we're tired of building shitty computers that are designed to break, and you know, whether it's a computer or a tire on the road that is designed to fail. And so now you start entertaining these ideas that were once threatening. That before you would say, listen, you know, Joe's over there working on some stuff that would, you know, basically put the tire business out. Like it would just destroy it. Like, it would just change too much stuff. We can't do that, because then it's going to affect everything here, and it's going to affect jobs and all stuff. So you change all of that. Now you start developing these technologies that you can be more like unrestricted in your innovation.
Going back,
you don't care anymore about. Go ahead.
Going back to the janitor thing, what if I think they've already come out with something sort of like this, where you can coat surfaces with a specific material where nothing sticks to it anymore. So suddenly, maybe it was way too expensive to do that on a large scale before. And you go and you coat urinals, and you go and you coat floors of bathrooms, just to go back to the janitor thing, with this material now, because money isn't an object. So now it needs less cleaning, because just stuff doesn't stick and doesn't become a problem anymore. It's stuff like that would probably happen.
And what's wrong with just cleaning it? Like, okay, do we have a cleaning crew that comes clean the house? No. Every now and then I look out, and, you know, Nick's cleaning up the pool area back here. One of you guys, it's just people like,
it's
being
a collective
responsible.
effort.
It's being responsible.
Yeah, being responsible.
That's why I think a good keyword is the responsibility factor, and this is talked about in some of the other like shows I listen to. Like, ooh, you hear that? Boom, boom.
But would everybody do that though? Would there be just
that's part of
an
it.
Entire class of people who would just hang out by the pool all day and just be like going to Vegas, balling?
There would be tons of freeloaders, but the freeloaders right now, the freeloaders are. I don't want to say freeloaders, but that attitude you're talking about is pushed up onto a pedestal of, oh, well, that's what you want to be doing, right? You don't want to be working like the rest of everyone else, slaving away. Well, for some people, they don't see it that way. I don't see it that way. I'm not slaving away. I'm having a good time doing and I like what I do. But I still think you're going to have people who take advantage of the situation, who go on a 2-year, 3-year vacation. But eventually, those people are going to see that the status isn't there anymore. Yeah. Before they had the status,
they're going to get bored with the same excess every day.
They're not going to get the attention, the ego, because the things that are immediately going to change is no one is going to be photographing Kanye West and Kim Kardashian, because the people who are doing those jobs don't care. I'm just saying no one cares.
God.
So they could try all they want. They could be like, listen, we'll try to pay you so much money, man. Just keep taking pictures of us and putting them up online so we get the attention, and people aren't going to care. You're not, if you can't entice them with money anymore and go, listen, I'll give you, $500. We're going to be coming out of Bed Bath & Beyond. Take a picture of us. If you can't do that anymore,
paparazzi will go away.
Paparazzi vanishes. So the attention on celebrities is going to vanish. That would vanish like very, very quickly. Nobody's going to want to
unless they become somebody who's a speaker, who is a leader, who starts something different. Worth following. That's still going to happen.
Now you maybe get attention where so and so is doing something good for the environment.
Kim Kardashian tweets about cool stuff. Okay,
but
cool stuff.
I do think a lot of it.
Back to the topic.
If you get rid of this focal point of awareness, right, all of this attention you put on celebrities, so this whole pool partying, and don't get me wrong, dude, I would love to take a 6-month vacation and just relax.
Oh yeah, I think most people would do that. Initially, they would do that. Everybody like fuck work.
Exactly.
We're gonna go take the next 3 years off, and then it'll be this period of time where people will literally. It'll be excess every day,
and leisure.
It'll just be leisure every day, but eventually people will get bored of that, and they would want to do something.
You're going to want to do something, and you're not going to have the attention from doing nothing. And I don't mean that celebrities aren't working hard.
If everybody's doing nothing, suddenly you're the norm now.
Yeah. So it would all just
and that wouldn't
level
be cool.
Out. It would not be cool. But I think you would find things to do, just like when people talk. Oh, well, who's going to grow food? Well, a lot of people who tend to the land, and there's a lot of if you read about and you listen to some of these interviews with these like farmers, especially and I've listened to ones with organic farmers who are talking about why they dude, they love what they're doing. They're not doing
it's therapeutic to them.
Yeah, there's not
to do that.
They love working with the land and doing these things. So and that's, I'm totally bypassing replicated technology, and so it's like you wouldn't even need to do that. But in a sense of just people are going to naturally gravitate and attract towards the things they like to do. And so many jobs that are currently there that you could say a lot of them are there because of It's just like money. Think of money as oil. A lot of the infrastructure just to support the oil.
The oil system. Yeah.
Money is, you think of all, like a lot of industries and businesses and jobs are related to the fact that we have to pass tree bark around and use that as like a form of energy exchange. But if that goes away, then all of a sudden you're going to have all these people with a lot of just energy every day that they're going to try to put out somewhere, and it's going to have to come out in a different way, like in terms of what are they doing with it, like how are they going to innovate and change.
You guys seen Wall Street, right? You guys have both seen Wall Street, Oliver Stone? No?
No,
Fuck.
I have not.
The old one?
The old school, yeah, the first one with Charlie Sheen, Michael Douglas. Dude, there is a fucking amazing line in there with Michael Douglas. He basically is
Can I pull it up on the
shark.
YouTube?
He's the shark of Wall Street. I think his name's Gecko.
Gordon Gekko.
Gordon Gekko. And he has this fantastic line in the film where he's telling Charlie Sheen, and he's reaming somebody out on his team, and he's telling him, you know, my job, I produce nothing. I take other people's money and I produce nothing, but I consume everything. And that just goes to show you the type of system that we have in place where this guy, like a trader, for example, he has, you know, he doesn't come in to his job with X amount of dollars and starts his firm with 10 million. Sure, some of them have to break out if they want to be like their own individual brokers and whatnot. But if they come on being like part of a team and a trader, you know, you start off as kind of like a cold caller and you're trying to get people to invest. You're telling them your tips and your strategy. But I mean, it was such a crazy thing to think about that he doesn't build buildings for people to have businesses in. And essentially, you know, some brokers have branched out into real estate and development and whatnot. But I'm just saying, going from his character in this time frame and what he was talking about, is the line is so powerful of I produce nothing, but I consume everything. Because from what he makes off of his investments, the guy's, you know, a multi-millionaire or maybe even a billionaire by our standards this day and age. But to get back on topic again with the relationship thing with money, I do feel that even in this day and age, you can have relationships with people that are from what I will call a different financial spectrum. I personally had one of those experiences myself where I was not nearly even remotely close to somebody's financial, we'll say, availability that I was. And it works. It does. But unfortunately, what happens over time is there are stresses that are created by that.
Because of the differences? Because
of the differences.
I don't want to say of the classes, but because of the,
just of the
resources available.
Yes, because of the resources available. Because eventually what's going to start to happen is one person or the other person is going to start to question, well, am I compromising myself for what the situation is? Am I happy with where I'm at? Could I be further if X and Y and Z were put together in a row? People, I think, and again, this is with the system that we have now. I'm speaking from the monetary system we have now, not from if money wasn't an option. People, unfortunately, create stresses for themselves in the current system that we have because, yeah, looking down the road in the quote-unquote long run, they're going to look at it and say, well, you know, is this person pulling their weight? Is this person towing the mark? Is this person progressing? And unfortunately, you know, sometimes it just doesn't work out. And for as many people that want to sit there and say that, oh, money doesn't matter to me, you're fucking lying to yourself. Because in the system that is in place right now, it does matter to you. If it doesn't matter to you, don't work for 6 months. Don't do it. And see how many friends you got mailing you and calling you. Yeah, a lot of bill collectors will come after you. Then you'll have a lot of friends. You know, money does matter to you. In this system, money does matter to you. And it does matter in our relationships in this day and age. And I think it is possible to bypass that for a certain amount of time, but in that amount of time, while you are bypassing it, you need to make. We'll take this just as a rough generalization. You've got the artist and you've got the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is doing extremely well. They can be male or female in both roles. We'll flip-flop that back and forth. In our typical setting and our setup now, it's more accepted if the male is the entrepreneur and he's taking care of the female who is the artist. Well, if the roles are reversed and the female is the entrepreneur and the male is the artist, well, then it's looked at as a loss of pride, a lack of motivation, a lack of determination.
Yes.
And you're looking at something from a very different perspective because now people are telling you, well, you're not progressing far enough. You're not doing this. Well, how do you know that? How can that entrepreneur tell that artist, you're not getting to where I'm at when I'm working on a different set of rules than you are?
Yes,
Exactly.
that's exactly the area I wanted to explore with this topic, because the money gets in the way of that.
It does.
You know,
it does.
oh, what the entrepreneur is doing is more important and more worthwhile than what the artist is doing, than what the musician is doing.
Depends what box you're in. Everything is like truth is relative to whatever the framework you're operating under. So if somebody is saying, well, you're not progressing that far, but their box, their rules are that money is everything, or not even just everything, but they're putting it in the context of that accruement of wealth, of things, so they could at the end of their life go, look at all these things I've amassed. Look at all these things. Look at my treasures, and you could say, look at all my experiences I've had. You know, and it's they're two very different things, and how you measure them are there isn't a right and a wrong, because if you came into that life with the sense of, I want to see how much I can accrue, how much material wealth I can accrue, then maybe you've succeeded tremendously. Yep. But if it's not that it's a right or wrong thing, it's just those were the conditions you wanted to play. It's like if you booted up Grand Theft Auto and you wanted to see how many accidents can I cause as I play for the next hour, and somebody could be like, oh, that was such a waste of time. You're like, well, dude, that's what I was trying to do. That was my goal. I wasn't
just to create mayhem.
And somebody else might say, well, my goal when I loaded up Grand Theft Auto was to see how far I could run on foot in an hour. And so it just depends what your framework is. Like, what are you going after? What are your pursuits? But that goes right back to, what do you want to do? Like in Alan Watts, what would you do? What are you here to do? What do you want to do? And you could change that at any moment. You could tomorrow or today, right now, stop whatever you're doing and just go do what you want to do. If you decide you're just done with that, you're just done. You're moving on. Like you have the power to do that. And some people are like, oh, I can't do that because da 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 da. Well, that's if you want to, you can create attachments to things, and surround yourself with these attachments. And I can't do any of the, because I'm limited in my options here. And you can, granted, I mean, that's a subjective,
and you can do that choice, you can do that little by little. I don't know if you saw the post I sent you guys, but Arnold Schwarzenegger posted on Reddit yesterday in the fitness.
Saw that.
And one thing somebody asked him was, how do I get to follow my dream? And while I'm doing this job that I suck, how do I do it? So Arnie responded with, keep working the job you're doing now, even though you don't like it, but use that income to save up to eventually jump into what you want to do.
Exactly.
Work another year or two, save up, and start putting away for that so you could do that.
Balance.
Yeah.
Shift the balance.
You don't have to do it immediately. Don't have to do it immediately, little by little.
But recognizing that you want something different is key.
Yes, exactly.
Recognizing, knowing where you want to steer the ship, because it's like your body, the output of your energy and what you can do on a given basis is like the equivalent of, let's just say, like a giant aircraft carrier or a cruise ship, the Titanic, right? It takes a while. So if you were to decide right now, if I were to decide I want to be an architect, it doesn't happen like that. It doesn't just. I'm steering a very big ship.
Yeah.
It takes a while for that ship to turn and start going in that direction. So if I decide I want to be an architect, and I spend a few days reading about it, then all of a sudden I go, oh, this is getting me nowhere. Well, the ship turned like a 2 degrees in that time that I've been doing this. That's why you're not seeing the results yet. But if you keep going, you'll start to really notice that you are in a different place now. And but it's like you have to first pick a direction and then focus on it and go with that. But a lot of people, I think, don't. You're limited in your ability to do that, especially with money.
A lot of times people just don't know how to do this stuff. They don't have the guidance there to do it, and they don't have maybe a role model to go off of.
True.
Or they don't listen to podcasts like Rogan's, for example, where he was saying this the other day too, where a lot of times people they really don't have what I was just saying, the framework, the support, the viewpoint on how to do things, and a lot of people get that from his podcast is a different viewpoint, a positive one, on how to change themselves for the better.
Yeah.
And I think stifling, dude. It goes back to stifling. People get stifled when somebody tells you an idea. We talked about this, Geoff, with a friend of ours who has a very, very, very bad habit of being a projectionist. He just has a very, very bad habit, and he's working on it. but he is a type of person that is very talented at what he can do. But if you approach him with an idea, he is very skeptical and negative about things, and he just projects his opinion out very negatively. So of course, as a person talking to him, you're going to go, well, fuck this. I don't want to talk to you about this, dude. You're going to shoot it down and shit on it, you know, and then I'm either going to get into an argument with you, or I'm going to tell you your ideas suck too. And now it's a shit slinging contest. So that's all it is. That's all it is. So when people want to talk about things, they want to feel some kind of camaraderie in their moment. They want to have some compassion, some empathy, and they essentially want to have support. So when you go to somebody with an idea, you know, sure, you can be very strong-willed and very confident in what you want. And those people, that's a personality trait that I personally have. If you tell me I can't do it, fuck you. I don't care what you think. But if you're on board with me, thank you very much. Thank you for the support. But some people, if you stifle them, dude, they're shut down. They are shut down. They are just, oh, you're right. I can't do that. I can't do that. And that's very, very unfortunate to stifle people that way.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are like that.
It's tough.
They have bits of that, you know, where if one person tells them they can't, or even several people tell them they can't do something, you know, they will just like, well, maybe that's not such a good idea. Well, maybe I shouldn't do X, Y, Z.
Well, you know, the thing with that is, and again, I think this comes back to a personality trait, because I'm a very competitive person, for example. I'll just use myself in this. If you keep telling me over and over, you can't, but I know that I'm good at it, and I don't understand why you're telling me I can't do it, then now I just want to show you.
Want to prove me
now
wrong.
I just want to show you why I can do it. So therefore, and again, I think that's a personality trait. Some people will go, after the first or the second time, hey, you know what? Yeah, damn, I'm not as good as I thought I was at this, and I feel that I'm not making any progress. You know, this isn't happening. So people will get very, very disgruntled, and they'll get very, you know, they'll lose their self-esteem over it, and they'll just say, you know what? I need to conform now. I just need to do something different with this or that or the other. So it's difficult. You need to have a strong support system, and you just have to have that fire within yourself to tell whatever it might be, the person that's telling you cannot, and the 15 people that you cannot, that you can. And I'm just using that from personal experience of just the industry we work in.
Yeah, I've had the same thing.
Does that.
I've had the same thing. You know, people telling me I can't do things a certain way when I know better, and
it's tough
going on to prove them wrong.
And how does that feel? How does that feel at the end of that when you go, you know what? Thank you for
me personally. There's no ego thing there for me with it, so I'm not like, oh yes, you proved you wrong. I'm not like that at all. I'm just like, it's in the back of my mind. Yes, yeah, I could do it, no problem.
I think it also just plays into the internal reflection of how you see yourself. Because if you derive your energy to do something from the external environment, then it sucks, because you need the reinforcement. You need the positive support system. And if you're not getting it, it's frustrating, because that's the only way you're able to do it. But if and I don't think it's right to just say that it's got to be totally internal. But I think that's where a part of it, where it's like, if you can, it doesn't matter what people say, and you don't take offense to it. It doesn't bother you what people say, because if all of your output is generated internally, and you don't need other people to say you're good at something or you suck. Like, you don't need the assessment of the external environment to tell you whether or not what you're doing is good or bad or something like that. Well, then you can just do it, and it doesn't really matter. But I still think there's this element, which is maybe it's a human thing, but of having, you want to surround yourself not just with yes people, but people who care about you and are going to give you I think reinforcement, like
a support system.
Yeah,
it can be critical, but it's just like not like that negative projection of just their own insecurities or ego, whatever, coming out at you. Like, because you got to criticism is can be good, even if it's like people are giving you criticism on something. You're like, okay, it sounds like I'm not. This isn't. They're just giving their opinion on something, and if you respect them, and if you trust them, then
they'll still support you after that. They'll help you get along to do what you want to do. But they might still put in their 2 cents saying, maybe that's not a good idea, or that's a really good idea, but it's going to be really tough.
Yeah,
I'll support you in the meantime, though.
Exactly. Like, you want their opinion. You don't need somebody to shit on your idea or basically to project onto you or something like that. So.
I guess that's a valid viewpoint, Geoff. I guess.
We're getting off topic again, but I want to throw it at Geoff real fast. How would a world with no money affect you and your fiance? because you're in a completely different ballpark than Matt and myself are. We are young single men, and you are engaged at this point. So how would that affect your life? Like, how would that affect where you're at right now? I mean,
well, it would be such a big thing because it would affect, it wouldn't affect me as much as I think it would affect her, because then she would be able to do whatever she wanted to do with her life and not be confined to doing a job or something out of necessity.
Yep.
So I think it would be dramatically different for her. For me, I'd be doing the same thing. I'd be here and there. I'd probably move back and forth faster, and I'd probably try to work with people to develop technologies to get even from coast to coast even faster, so I could move about more freely. But I would still be doing the same thing. Like, it wouldn't change anything I'm already doing, and it takes me a while to get here, but I'm already doing what I want to be doing. Working on storytelling and stuff of that nature. I'd probably spend more time on other things, just in a sense of like writing and coming up with better ways to relate ideas to people, and spend more time on that, more focus on that. But for me personally, a lot of stuff wouldn't change. Like, it wouldn't
so your stress level wouldn't change,
no, not too much. It's been a process, but I've from where I was a few years ago in terms of stress levels, like it's just that focus, like steering that big ship has been for years now. Eliminate stress, eliminate attachment to material things like understanding them, like basically coming to terms internally with why I feel a certain way about a certain thing, for instance, why I might have needed that. Well, why do I need, and really internally exploring that and reflecting on that and unwrapping it and figuring it out and then putting it back on the shelf. I don't need you anymore. So my stress levels are already quite low. So, like, a lot of things just wouldn't change for me. Like I told you before, if I won the lotto, I'd probably still drive my Honda Civic. Or trade it in for an electric car or something like that, just to be,
I feel kind of similar. I'm already kind of doing what I want to do, or I'm headed in the right direction. So suddenly, not having money being an issue would buy me the most precious thing of all, which is time. Time to spend on that. Time to spend meditating, working out, cooking, just being a human being. Not being a debt slave. That's what it would enable me to do.
Yeah.
But like Geoff, there's already a lot of things I've figured out about myself, and I'm already kind of steered the ship in the direction I want to go in. I'm just going to continue on down that path.
Yeah, I think what it would initially do is it would just lower your stress level about everything.
Your stress level.
Because what are you stressed about? You're stressed about making rent. You're stressed about making bill payments. You're stressed about this. You're stressed about that. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're good. Maybe you're fine. Maybe you're just completely good and you're navigating the waters, however you want to call it. But again, when you take those stress levels away, what can you focus that energy on now? Maybe it would be a community project, and maybe you notice a neighborhood you live in, you're like, hey, there's this cool old playground that's kind of nasty and ran down. I'm sure if we put about 20 hours into it a week, we could probably build this thing up. Or maybe there's a basketball court close by that is nasty and busted down.
I could see that happening even between the three of us. You know what I mean? We just finished a grueling process of making a movie, and we're all exhausted mentally. So let's go spend a month and rebuild a park.
Yeah,
get out there and bust our ass and sweat, but we're gonna do that, and it's gonna look great, and the kids are gonna enjoy the shit out of it.
I think that's another thing too to take into effect. Like in a world, and I'm not gonna go into the tech.
In a world.
No, but and I'm not gonna go into the technology aspects. But if you just said everybody's rich, right? We're already. I feel that we're moving into an era where, because of technology, even current technology, you don't need to be on an assembly line, like a person, right?
Yep.
So you're getting more into this area where people are good at many things, where you have the time and the resources to learn various disciplines. So it becomes exciting then if you just finish a movie, if you didn't need to then go work and to get food and all this crap, right? So you don't have to do any of this stuff. So if you just want to be a carpenter, if you wanted to say, let's go build something, cool. Let's figure out how to do it. Let's watch some videos on YouTube and learn how to do this. You couldn't do this now.
John down the street is giving a carpentry class 2 days a week. I'm going to go start doing that.
Just start, because now you have all of this time. You can start throwing your energy into many things. So like, it's more common for me to consistently run across artists where I go, oh, they know how to do visual effects, they do motion graphics too. Oh, you know how to do editing, you know how to do sound. And it's not just because everybody's a genius; it's because they're applying their energy and their time to all of these different things to learn how to do. And granted, you still have the technology is becoming easier and more integrated into our lives, so you're able to, it's not so much time, whereas like 30 years ago you might have had to spend a lot of time learning how to program an earlier computer or one of these devices or something like that. That would require a significant degree
more time, more
investment,
work, and more of a monetary investment. It used to be to do a lot of things now that are very easy to do in your own home. The
transition from mental thought to shareable or collective, like a tangible representation of that thought is faster and faster and faster. So you hear a song in your head and you just can crank that out on a keyboard over the course of a day and share it with your friends. You've got an idea for a story, you can write it, share it, disseminate it very, very quickly across. So it's like that whole process is getting faster and faster and faster. So you can learn new new techniques and stuff like. So if we wanted to go build a basketball court or something, we could all figure that out. Between the three of us, we could figure out like how to pour cement and go rent the equipment to do something, especially if you had access to
different things like that.
So you could start doing, and then that's when I start to think about like this plot of land that we live on in this house, and this is where like my fantasy is really kicking a high gear, and it's like the sense of we have a certain amount of acreage here, right? And imagine if it was just free and unrestricted, do whatever you want with the space, and you had like large-scale industrial replication technology. So
we could print out and build anything.
So like basically, we could use a computer system and holographically build out like, we want this to be a 3 or 4 story structure with this and this and this and this and this and da 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 da. And it really, like, we could design anything we wanted and then walk away. And then, press a button and the land is converted and it gets, reassembled, and the energy in the space is formatted to match the structure that we want. And suddenly you have this like 4-story, 5-story amazing structure for you to live and work in. And I think that's when I really get excited, when I start to think about what you could do with that, and like where thought becomes reality so much faster. Where it like that boat, the steering of the boat, like where it used to take. And me and Jason were just talking about that. Like watching these game animatics, these cinematics from Blur Studios are just, I get so jealous because that's how I want to tell stories. But I also don't want to, like, even with the movie we're working on right now, like it's such a.
You don't want to spend 2 years making it. You don't want to spend
2 years.
Several $100,000, millions of dollars to make it.
It's that sense of it's the speed. I want I want to be able to translate thought to reality faster. And just as much as it's not that I don't enjoy the process of making a movie over the course of 2 years, I just wish that I could make more of them. And it's not about making money to do it. It's just that sense of I constantly have ideas, and I would love to be able to crank out here's an idea, and you get together with a group of your friends, and over the course of 2 or 3 months of amazing of really like long hours, fun hours working on something, throwing a ton of time and investment energy into something, 2-3 months, you've got this thing that you can enjoy, this movie, instead of like a 2-3 year process.
Well, that's a money thing though, Geoff, because think about it. If you were like, let's say you had 10 million, you could hire a small production company to work on a little project while you're working on another project, and you could essentially have all of these things going on at once. And again, in the system we have in place right now. So that just boils down to a money issue, man.
It's money.
It's a money issue.
Right now.
But you can convert that to just pure technology, in a sense of
eventually
your ability to take an idea like a movie, and then by streamlining a process in certain software, hardware, and just technological capability, you could make a movie like Avatar, and it might not have the finesse of the storytelling, But from a technological,
you mean Dances with Wolves meets Jurassic Park?
Yeah. But in a sense of like creativity, like creatively, we could sit down and you could finesse the dialogue, and you spend a lot of time in this. And you see that like good movies tend to spend more time in the script process, where they're being rewritten and people are really considering what's being done here. But the polish, the technical polish, is something that is like just, it takes so much time, right? But if you can compress that time so that you're spending more you're spending less time rendering and doing all these things and conforming like if you're more just spending all of your time on creatively engaging in various aspects of the pipeline, then I think it just becomes much more exciting in a sense of delivering that product and like getting to that place where you're able to generate work in that way. And it's just, but you apply that to just about anything.
That goes with, can be applied to anything.
So it just starts accelerating. So I love the idea that like becoming more just adept at various disciplines and being able to just design like if you wanted to be an architect, like you just you use certain software, certain tools, you learn certain things, and you're building your own home. This is exactly what you want it to look like. And you see that more and more a little bit with people who use who I've heard about this, people who just learn about a little amount about architecture, and then they go build up a mock-up of their home in 3D. And right now they take their little 3D mock-up, like I could go mock up my home in 3D, right?
They bring it to a contractor.
I'll bring it to a contractor who will reformat it, who will reformat it into blueprints that can be physically built, right?
Yeah.
But now imagine if I took 3D Studio, I build out this is what my dream
Some
home
crazy
would be.
3D printer comes out that can print any kind of material, any atom.
And it also reformats it. So I go, this is what I want, and a machine reads it and goes, okay, this is what I would need to adjust to make this structurally sound.
Yeah.
And
just go through and improve all the changes.
I don't need to know that. I don't need to know that level of detail. The same way you don't need to know machine code language to run Pro Tools.
Yeah, it might just tell you, oh, you have to move this wall here, you have to adjust the height of this plug there. Yeah. It'll just go through and just click approve, deny, deny.
Approve, and it's showing you what, okay, great. I don't even need, I don't need that anymore. So this way I'm becoming, just as much as you're running Pro Tools built on the framework of machine code language and all the scripting, but you're just doing Pro Tools, but you're using all these other things. The same way I could be an architect. And I could
building on all this other technologies in order to do what you got to do.
Exactly. So then, without needing all of these specialized, like extremely specialized disciplines, I can build my home the way I want it to look, the way you can make music the way you want it without needing to know all the specifics of how computers are built and function.
Yep.
Exactly. Back to topic again.
What you got?
I have back to the topic too. I was going to pose this. How do you think sex would change? How would sex change in a society without money?
Would there still be strip clubs?
Would it be as casual as it is still, or would it even become more casual?
Yes.
Or would it become more unavailable due to people being more selective, seeing as they would go to places and they would look for people that are more like-minded? Because again, there's no money. You're not looking at somebody's car. You're not looking at somebody's clothes. You're not looking at the places they take you, because the places they would take you would essentially be based off of your likes and dislikes. And everybody has the same availability and ability to do so. So now it's more of an issue of, do you connect with that person? Do you find similar interests in these things? You know, have they been listening to the things you like? Oh, I love this. I love that. And then they end up taking you to the wrong place. You're like, oh, well, no, never mind. I didn't like that at all. But how do you think that would change? You know, how would that change? Would sex, would it be more casual, infrequent, more frequent? What do you think?
I don't think it really would be any more infrequent. Because, again, I think taking the money out of the equation you'd be able to connect with each other on a much more personal playing field than you do now. So maybe there would be more, but I don't really think it would be affected that much.
So you think it'd be about the same then?
Yeah, I think it'd be a weird period again where people are readjusting their way of approaching everything, their way of feeling like, oh, I don't get the sense of confidence that I get because of this, because I bought this expensive suit and I'm sitting in this expensive bar drinking this expensive drink. I don't think that confidence goes away maybe because of that. but over time they have to develop a different kind of confidence that the opposite or the same sex would pick up on and would go for. So again, I think there's this period of readjustment where people are just totally, they don't know what, but things of that you're going into more like societal issues where, you know, girls don't want to be slut shamed, so they don't sleep around a lot.
Well, I thought that's what we were talking about.
That's
I mean, I'm sorry. I thought not like new developments in technology. Like we were talking about relationships and money. Relationships and money. So that's what I mean. I feel like sex is a part of that relationship factor. You know, so therefore, would it change? Would it be the same? Would it be more frequent? Would it be infrequent? You know,
I think for me, my mind, I can't think about certain things.
Can't help but going back to the replicator stuff. I know, Geoff.
Well, no, it's just so many other things. Because when you talk about like even like, I mean, just propose this situation you just brought up here. Because if you say, okay, if there's not, you know, like how would sex change and how would people act here? Well, you could say, if I said to you, well, I think people would be more casual and like they would have more casual sex. Well, then it goes into, well, what kind of health technology is around right now? Because if people are worried about these things, then that's not going to change. Yeah, it's like people aren't going to change.
Right.
Yeah, like, so all these other factors still come into play. So in terms of affecting people, so I can only say that if money wasn't an option, then you're going to have certain types of sex that are just not going to be there. You're not going to have prostitution.
Anal?
You might have less. You know, but you wouldn't have prostitution to any, like, unless they were unaware that money wasn't in play anymore.
I still think too, though, but that there would be a certain, I mean, again, it's still a societal thing, but there'd still be a certain number of guys and girls who just love having sex. They just love it.
Like a subculture,
and they would still do it, even if it wasn't for money anymore. If all of their basic needs were met, and then they could have the food and the shelter and everything else they needed, they would still just be like, I just like this. I'm going to keep doing it.
I like banging.
I mean, it's a really valid question. I hadn't put much thought into it. So it's one of those things I don't have a lot. I can't expound on it too much because I just.
Well, how about this, Geoff? What do you think would happen? Just go with that. What do you think? You don't have to watch YouTube.
I mean, my mind just goes into funny places, like what Matt just suggested. It becomes the same way.
The health thing is a good point, by the way. The health thing is a really good point because you can't be spraying everywhere and just hoping that you're not going to catch something.
But when we talked about this in other ways, relating it, when we had related this to filmmaking, for instance, right now you can attract somebody to make a movie with money. Yeah, so if I want Richard Gere to be in my movie, I could be making the shittiest movie on the planet, and Richard Gere's like, this movie looks ridiculous. But I'm like, dude, I'll pay you $20 million. He's like, oh, well,
all right.
What time do you need
I love that script.
So
I think it's Nick Cage. You want to bring Nick Cage into that.
But so if you don't have money, you can't attract people anymore in that sense. I can't show up with a shitty script and be like, dude, you want to be in my shitty movie? No, now I need to have a good script because it doesn't matter how much I want to pay you. You need to like it. This is cool. You want to do this? I like that idea. And
you need to like it.
So, yeah, you need to like what you're doing. But it's the same thing. So when you talk about, okay, well, and I said this, there wouldn't be prostitution, right? Well, now you would instead be a sense of, well, you have to be on par with one another. Maybe you both want to be doing that, but you'd have to convince somebody in a more personal sense of relating to whatever you wanted to engage in. So you can apply that engagement to anything, whether it's making a movie or sex.
Dude, great thing right there. Okay. Well, then would it even be more difficult to get to these quote unquote intimate or personal relationships? Because what Geoff just said brings up a really, really good point. You can, what we have right now, you can hide behind a facade or a mirage of having wealth and resources and income. I can go out and I can use my credit card and buy out the bar, bro. You know, but yeah, I'm going to be depressed on Monday when I get that statement. But if it is similar to like what you said, Geoff, where if you are just putting it out there and saying, look, if you want to be a part of this, it has to be really good because now I've got all of this access to everything. So therefore, going back to what we were talking about, sex and relationship, well, sex in this topic right now, yeah, maybe it would be even more difficult to land somebody because now their options are immense and extremely broad.
Yeah.
So, now what happens? It's no longer...
It has to be genuine.
Yeah,
yeah, you have to be... It's more relied on personality.
It is. It isn't... Because if you think about it right now, let's just have a scenario. A guy and a girl. Guy's taking out this girl.
What's she wearing?
She's wearing a muumuu, a yellow muumuu.
Perfect.
Yeah, with a giant baseball hat. Anyway,
man, totally.
So they're going out.
Killed it.
So they're going out, and the guy. Let's say the guy's wealthy, and let's just use it as money. So he's using his money. He's spending a shitload of money this evening, and he's driving this amazing car, all this kind of stuff, right? So the girl might be attracted to the situation of this guy has power, money, resources, and there's this like little thing pushing at her to say, lock it down, lock this guy down. This is a good thing. He's a nice guy. Do whatever you got to do to lock this down. If you remove the lock it down mentality, then I feel that people would be less likely to have sex in a relationship. It would take longer. Whereas if you wanted to, if just throwing out a random number, if everyone right now the average is 3 dates and people have sex. If you were in a society without money, it might be 2 months. It might be that people, men and women. I'm just saying,
like it could go the either way. I feel like it could be accelerated.
What's the incentive? What's the incentive to throw yourself out there? Because it's a very intimate process, right?
I look at it as people just wanting to have fun, not just girls. People will just want to have fun.
If you want to go to the right, you might go to a resort island where that is the thing. The same, like it might just be like a social.
You guys have heard of Viking Island, right? You guys ever heard of this place?
Never heard of Viking Island.
What is this?
Keep your thought. Viking Island is a place in the Caribbean that an old buddy of mine wanted to have his bachelor party there. So he sends me this link to this thing called Viking Island. I'm thinking it's like some fucking like role-playing place where you can be Vikings and shit. I'm like, this is awesome. This is pretty cool. You battle it out, and this is pretty badass. No, dude, this place is called look it up. Viking Island. It's in the Caribbean, and it's essentially a island you go to where for whatever you pay, there are all-inclusive packages. Meaning you can buy multiple girls while you're there. You can have a lot of fun. You can have 1, 2, 3, as many as 4 girls. Supposedly, it's just it's wild.
So it's just like
it's wild,
like that hedon place, whatever.
Yeah, like hedonistic
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, Matt's got it up online right now. Look,
Vikings Exotic Resort.
Yeah. So, anyways,
that wouldn't exist. But what was I talking
about? You were talking about like maybe people would go and search out these places. Like when Matt said he was he thinks it could go either way, and you were like, well, no, I think there would be places
I think you would have retreats, like places where people, if you were in that mindset where you just wanted to party and for whatever reason,
it would still be. I still think it. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
It would still be super casual. It would just be go to the coffee shop, grab a coffee. There's a cute girl sitting there. And now, because I'm not working, because I don't have to be at work at a certain time, I could sit and just chat that girl up.
Maybe.
And now it's just, she's just like, well, I don't have to be at school, or I don't have to be at work, so we're just going to keep hanging out and chatting. Let's go from the coffee shop to grab dinner. And now you're on a date. Boom. You instantly met because you don't have a job and the money's not a big deal. You just go out and you have a fancy date. And then you rent from there, you rent a boat. You go out on the boat. You spend the rest of the evening, and then who knows where things go once you're on that boat alone.
Where do things go?
It would change everything. It would change
everything.
And it could go either way, like both of you guys said. It could become an even more of a discriminatory process of like, I'm going to make this guy wait about 6 months.
Well, no, it's not even that.
Or it could be... Or it could
just be like,
boom, let's make it happen.
Yeah, let's just have fun. We're going along with this cool guy.
That's for the casual, and it depends what do you want? What if you, again, going back to the boat, let's go to the boat analogy. If you just want a casual encounter and you want it to be...
Isn't that on Craigslist?
You want it to be not, I don't want to say meaningless, but you don't want a deeper connection. Yeah. Then you will gravitate and you will find people who match that. But I feel a lot of people, especially when you have the time now and you take these pressures off, and you're absolutely right, it could flow the other totally, and it's not that there's one way that is going to be that's the way. It's just it might be that it's more like from a macro sense, it's more that's more common or something, right? That's all we're really talking about. What's more common?
The money thing is giving people time. You give them more time when they don't have to worry about money anymore. And now with extra time, I think maybe those relationships or those scenarios are accelerated because they can spend more time with each other. They could do more things. of anything that you can think of with each other.
You're right.
Would you get sick of each other quicker though?
It's totally possible.
Dude, that's a really good point.
So I think it would be both. I think the dynamic would become more dynamic. Actually, that's my response to your question.
The time compression, dude. Think about when you. Yeah. I've never done this, but you see this in movies, and you've heard about it. But in a sense of people going to another country and they're on vacation and they meet a woman, a man, whatever the situation is, however it works out, and they're in mad love after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, because they're spending a very compressed amount of time together. Where you might be dating somebody for 9 months and you fall in love.
You spread it out because you're always working, because you're always going to work Monday through Friday, and you can only go on a date for 2 hours twice a week, and you're so busy because you're trying to pay bills.
So that's another thing to consider, is that with the time factor being now completely changed, modified, altered, where you're not spending all of this time doing jobs you don't like, and you're not chained to your job, especially if everybody's freelance and kind of just doing what they want to do when they want to do it in the moment. You have these options where you can just decide, oh, I've met somebody, I want to go do something. We're going to go hang out. We're going to go hang out in this country in the mountains with these other people for a little while and ski or something. You can do all of these things, right? So the time compression from a relationship suddenly is massively accelerated, just like every other aspect of life.
I think the dynamic range expands a lot between very much accelerated getting into getting into a sexual situation with a girl or guy, whatever, right off the bat. Or you could go the opposite way also, and people maybe become more choosy and more careful about who they're with, because they want to be with, because money's not an option anymore. They want to be with somebody who's generally really cool, who they really get along with, who really inspires them and they really love.
One thing I think you could almost compare it today to, like, and I don't, we can't do this, we're not rich, but if you take rich people already, for the most part, really rich people have unlimited options in a sense of what they want to do with their time, right? But the only thing that is working against them right now in this hypothetical scenario of, like, if we were trying to compare them to, well, how do they do things and how would they do it, is the fact that, one, you still have the ego associated with being propped up above the rest of society, and then they need to protect their property and their money. So that's like a little bit of a skew there, like in a sense of how they would maybe be picking their relationships. Because they still need to pick somebody, and like marriage is still important, even maybe more important when you're worth $100 million. But they have those options where they can just decide to, oh, I just want to go here for a week or two and go do this and go do that. And I think that would be something that everybody else would start to kind of mimic, in a sense of how you frame your time. Like, if you commit to something, if you tell me, Matt, like, oh yeah, I'll work on this project with you, if you're good to your word, you're just going to do it. You're going to hang around. But you might say, as soon as I'm done with this project, I'm taking 2 months off. I'm going to go to Aspen and ski, snowboard, and just hang out with people and meet people. And you're right. You're like, in terms of the acceleration of a relationship, I could see you 3 months down the road and you're like, oh, I met this wonderful person. We spent every day together for 2 months and it was wonderful. And then, but now she's going off here and I'm going off here. Maybe we'll link up again at some other time in the future. You don't know. But so, like, relationships, sex, everything, like all that stuff would just dramatically change.
Yeah. I think the dynamic range would just change a lot.
Yeah, it'd be a different place. Completely different place. Completely different.
Man, we can go on this subject even more, I'm sure. I think maybe sometime down the road we could even explore this again, because one thing
get a female in here?
definitely,
or a couple,
definitely.
And talk about this. And also another one I wanted to talk about is professional sports. How would that change with money?
Entertainment
wasn't getting entertainment,
sports, anything.
Yeah, so I think we should talk about this again at some other point and hit on those other subjects.
2 females, it's got to be 2 girls, and they've got to be from a different spectrum. One that is from a more balanced, we'll say, level background, and then one that has a little bit more access. Because I think you'd have a great dichotomy between the two. You'd have 2 people that basically, they'd be able to play off one another and not just be like the male versus female gender-based conversation of, well, you just think that because of this, and you think that. No. You come from a different place, and so do you, but we're just trying to encompass this discussion around different thoughts and ideas of where it is.
Yeah, so you're hearing it now, folks. The show is coming together as we speak.
That's right. Bringing on guest stars. It's going to be awesome. 2 chicks. at the same time, man. At the same time. Well, that was a fantastic show. I feel like everybody got some interesting information out there. And if you ever want to know what it would be like to ball out of control at a club with no money, just replay that. Replay that and listen to it in your sleep. But I want to end the show here with a quote by the man named Isaac Asimov. And the quote goes as such: "Self-education is, I firmly believe, the only kind of education there is." And that is Mr. Isaac Asimov. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed.
See you next time.
See you next time, everyone.